Good morning. So nice to see you all here. It's not raining so people can get here. We have arrived at that festive time of the year that I consider to be the pièce de résistance of spiritual seasons. It's that glorious month when metaphysically the emphasis is on giving birth to our Christ consciousness. This is a consciousness state that has been revered and worked on for thousands of years, even before the Egyptian mystery schools. It is the ultimate state in human development and consciousness, that exalted state of becoming one with our higher selves, becoming all that we can be as noble, fully developed spiritual beings. It means letting go of our individual ego and becoming one with God consciousness, spirit consciousness, the Christ consciousness. The Hindu tradition translation of this Christ consciousness is Krishna consciousness. The Buddhists refer to it as Buddha consciousness. The Christians translate it as Christ consciousness, and believe that the man Jesus attained this Christ consciousness. Thus, Jesus is often called Jesus Christ or Jesus the Christ. This consciousness is basically reaching the state in our spiritual growth where we rise above our strictly human state to a much higher level. At our undeveloped human or animal level, we are often just stimulus response machines going on an instinct and programming. At the Christ consciousness level, we are able to overcome our worldly selves and reach our full potentiality, our true spiritual growth. For example, we can experience our unity with all of life, our capacity to love unconditionally, of consistently acting above just self-interest and material concerns. With Christ's vision, we can see through people's worldly shortcomings to their divine essence, which everyone has. We are capable of love. The Bible says that God is love. Christ consciousness means that we can be one with this capacity to love. By their fruits ye shall know them. We have all learned about spiritual masters and saints who have reached that state. It's not easy. It usually doesn't happen without effort. But we know that it is absolutely possible for each of us. Jesus said, "These things that I do, ye shall do also, and greater." All spiritual masters have said it's possible. That's why they teach. We were meant to live at this level, to be fully human. To do this, we must often raise ourselves to a higher level, like you would raise a child. You have to do a lot to raise a child. And like raising a child, it is so rewarding and fulfilling in so many ways, ultimately. Jesus said, "I came that ye should have life and have it more abundantly." This ability to truly live abundantly, that is, to be able to love and to be at peace with others all the time and one with the world, no matter what is happening out there, no matter what others are doing. That is the way that we can have life and have it more abundantly. It means we avoid chaos, we avoid suffering, we avoid stress in our lives. We learn how to live in the world, but not be victims of it. Living in Christ consciousness means that we live in joy and harmony and in fulfillment. It doesn't mean we're unaware of what's going on out there or that we escape from reality in some way. It means that we have gained the wisdom to deal with life on a much higher level than just as a stimulus response machine. We are thus at cause and not at effect in our lives. This is the greatness of a truly wise being, and it is your birthright too, each one of you. Your giving birth to your Christ consciousness is the deepest metaphysical meaning of Christmas. Christmas and Christianity are not about worshiping the man Jesus, but doing what this great teacher taught, developing the Christ consciousness in ourselves. That's what Jesus asked us to do, not deify him, but to live by those principles. He never said to deify him or to start a religion about him. He told us repeatedly to model ourselves after what he stood for. When he said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," that I meant the Christ in him, not the man, Jesus. He told us that the Christ way is the truth way and the way of life, the way to manifest heaven on earth in our lives. That is what Christmas, Christ Mass, means. That's what it's really about. Loving unconditionally, peace with everyone, unity, compassion, life, and happiness. Now, I'd be preaching to the choir to talk to you all about the advantages of rebirthing the Christ consciousness in yourself. You already know that's the way, the truth, and the life. You know that your innate divinity can come forth and manifest in your daily life all the time, creating a heavenly state for you to live in and enjoy. What I would like to talk to you about today is how to do that, how to develop or give birth to your Christ consciousness. Most of you who are here manifest this state normally. I'm looking out at you. I know most of you. I know that's true. It's who you are. I can see that. You see that in each other. We all see that. But what I'd like to talk to you today about is how to maintain that state all the time, 24/7, so that you aren't creating chaos and suffering in your life at those times when the going gets rough, when you encounter real challenges in terms of others and difficult situations. That's when sometimes we need some help. We get glimpses of what it's like to love unconditionally. We can love our pets and our children and even our friends, at least as long as they call us on our birthdays and share our political ideas and they're nice to us. But that's not what the spiritual paths have told us is the goal. For example, when Jesus said, "Love one another as I have loved you," he meant to love everyone unconditionally all the time. When he was being crucified, the King James Bible quotes him as saying, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." It's turning the other cheek. It's using wisdom. Metaphysically, this story, the crucifixion of Christ, means that when we feel like others have done something to hurt us, we use our wisdom to understand that they didn't know any better, or they absolutely would not have done it. It doesn't mean, by the way, that we let others walk all over us. It simply means that we understand that they don't know any better. And maybe that we sometimes are even misinterpreting their actions according to our programming. When people do egregious things, most of us find it very hard to love them. And those are the very situations that end up causing us unnecessary suffering by disturbing our peace of mind and creating all kinds of chaos in our lives. We can't control others, but we have total control of ourselves and our reactions. So how do we develop and maintain this state of Christ consciousness that consistently maintains harmony and joy in our lives, no matter what is happening out there. Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore gave us some excellent tools which can help us develop this consciousness. I'm talking about Fillmore's 12 powers that he said we can all develop, which can lead to an ability to giving birth to our Christ consciousness. When I think of the song, The 12 Days of Christmas, it makes me think of Fillmore's 12 powers because they both lead up to the finale of Christmas. The 12 days of the song lead up to the joyful day of Christmas. Fillmore's 12 powers leads us to the Christ consciousness that this day really symbolizes. If you go to unity.org website, you will read the following about the 12 powers that Fillmore encouraged us to develop. It says, each of us has 12 creative powers that are fundamental to us. Notice I said develop the 12 powers, not create them. They're already in us. Understanding the true potential of these creates energies, and with that energy we're able to engage their powers, and they lead us to living a richly blessed life. Now you might ask yourself, how did Fillmore come up with these 12 powers anyway? Well, Charles Fillmore went on a committed spiritual search. It led him to Eastern spirituality, which he integrated with Christianity, with the Christianity of his upbringing. He was strongly influenced by the Transcendental movement, wherein one finds a deep appreciation of Hinduism. To continue with what the website says, from Fillmore's deep studies of spirituality, he came up with the 12 powers, which he believed provided a system for soul growth. They are spiritual tools for creating a life that is, as the Apostle Paul said, no longer storm-tossed by difficulties. Doesn't that sound like a wonderful life to live? Fillmore says that our minds can be a link to God through these 12 capacities. They are wisdom, love, strength, faith, imagination, order, understanding, will, power, zeal, and release. And lastly, life. The notion that each of us holds the divine within us is not new. It was around in Hinduism thousands of years before Christ, but most of us don't have a method for developing our spiritual capacities. And developing these 12 powers provides a deep, direct connection with the divine. With practice, these inherent spiritual capacities or powers can mature and form a reliable foundation for developing our fullest potential, Christ consciousness, while creating a life that is much more meaningful and fulfilling. For example, they can help us become capable of loving unconditionally, which will enrich and expand our lives and recalibrate us physically, mentally, and emotionally. Let's take a look at Fillmore's 12 powers as a blueprint to Christ consciousness. How can we use these 12 powers to let go of all that blocks our ability to manifest this Christ consciousness 24/7, no matter what? How can they help us not get bogged down with our negativity, judgments, stress? For example, how can we feel a oneness with all of life, all other beings, and thus align ourselves with the divine order of things and live without suffering and chaos? Today, I'd like to zoom in on the powers of faith, wisdom, release, and love. Unity says of all the faculties, the one Jesus spoke of most frequently was faith. A trust in the process. Faith is a trust in the process. Over and over, Jesus emphasized the importance of faith, not blind faith, but trust in the existence of something higher than this material plane. It must be remembered that faith doesn't come all at once. It needs to grow. The ability to trust God must grow in our lives. Faith has been defined in many ways. Unity says, faith is that quality in us which enables us to look past appearances to the often unseen reality of things. Through faith, we know with an inner knowing of the truth that has not yet expressed itself in the manifest world. I'm reminded here of Shakespeare's, one of his major themes, which is appearance and reality. Faith is often said to be a belief in a higher reality than just materiality, which is often the appearance of things. This higher reality can't always be seen, but it is nevertheless there. Examples are love, purity, and compassion. This belief in reality over appearances was also one of Plato's major themes and was the whole point of his famous cave allegory. Faith is basically the ability to think out of the box and not to accept blindly that the physical plane is all that there is. The second of Fillmore's 12 powers that we'll look at today is the power of wisdom. The Buddhist teacher Ayya Khema says, to find the right direction in life, we need the virtues of faith and its counterpart, wisdom. They must act together. The Buddha compared faith to a blind giant who meets a small, sharp-eyed cripple with wisdom. That it was called wisdom, as a matter of fact. Faith says to wisdom, I'm very strong, but I can't see where I'm going. And you're very weak, but you have very good eyes. Come and ride on my shoulders. Together we will go far. Faith and wisdom. Blind faith can move mountains, they say. But unfortunately, it doesn't know which mountains to move. Wisdom is absolutely essential in order to point the way. Wisdom has the sharp eye of that inner vision. But wisdom isn't something we can learn easily. It takes inner purification. This can come about when we concentrate on Fillmore's power of release. One of the 12 powers, release. We release all that pollutes us and blinds us to wisdom. Examples are such things as negativity, doubt, and ego-led lives. Another example, maybe one that the Fillmores, the Buddhists, and Hindus believe in releasing is, say, alcohol, because they believe alcohol hinders their ability to meditate. The Muslims consider alcohol a physical pollutant too. Another example of things that one might choose to release that the Fillmores and the Buddhists and Hindus agree on is not to eat any meat, for example, or any food which requires violence or killing. Thus, they're vegetarian. Basically, the power of release means to release whatever we believe in our lives blocks our spiritual growth for some reason. I suppose that each of us must decide for ourselves what that is, but there are some general standards for all of us for purity, like the 10 Commandments maybe, or the Buddhist Eightfold Path, or maybe basic human laws. When we have worked on releasing what we consider to be impurities that block our spiritual growth, wherever we are on our path, then we can move more easily, learn, digest the learning, and make that learning ours, because we have a fertile and tended garden in which we can plant those spiritual seeds. The Buddhists say that wisdom is like food. We eat, digest, and then eliminate the food that we can't use. If we haven't purified ourselves and released hindrances to our growth, we'll just take in the ideas and then quickly eliminate them because we won't be able to see their importance. The spiritual wisdom will just go right through us as information that goes in one ear and out the other. At best, there'll be idle spiritual cocktail conversation to chatter about, but they will have no effect on our lives. Thus, the Fillmore's power of release means letting go of what we consider to be impurities, especially judgment, negativity, prejudice, or any pollutants that we believe adversely affect our ability to pray, meditate, or think clearly or wisely. Lack of wisdom creates all kinds of chaos in our lives. We can waste years and a whole lot of energy and resources because we act without wisdom. Charles Fillmore says wisdom is spiritual judgment. He always pointed to the importance of judging by the standards of the higher self rather than by the world's standards. He said wisdom goes far beyond the perception, knowledge, and judgment of even the most learned people. Wisdom never draws conclusions simply from intellectual knowledge. Wisdom draws its conclusions from source. Fillmore further states that we cannot afford to allow ourselves to be caught up in judging according to appearances, making decisions based simply on intellectual knowledge, or accepting the limiting concepts of the worldly point of view. By the way, he also said that unloving, critical thoughts react particularly on what he calls the wisdom center at the pit of the stomach and may result in such ailments as ulcers, indigestion, and other difficulties of the stomach area and the heart. Modern medicine has often said the same thing. Wisdom helps us develop the ability to love and not judge. It helps us truly understand others, which is a physically healing ability for us. Well, it's important to remember that we are to develop all of the 12 powers in order to be fully realized spiritually. Fillmore says that there are certain powers that are most closely allied with the Christ in our development. Wisdom is one of these. Wisdom is not dependent on reasoning or intellectual understanding. It simply shines as the light from within, that illumines the way and reveals whatever needs to be shown at a particular time. Our purpose in developing this faculty of wisdom is to let the light of Spirit shine through us, directing all of our thoughts and words and motivations. The last of the 12 powers that we'll talk about today is love. The power love is perhaps the hardest to develop in us because it's so challenging to love people who we perceive as doing us wrong or going against our grain in some way. Yet it is critical that we achieve this ability if we're going to ever be free from the suffering and distress that our worldly programming can cause us. Fillmore said that faith, release of what's impure, wisdom, and love must all be developed and brought into everything that we do all the time. Because, for example, wisdom without love is cold, while love without wisdom is often misguided and impetuous. Each power is important and affects our ability to manifest all the others. They are interdependent. So how do we develop this power of unconditional love toward all people all the time? One way, as we've already discussed, is by developing the power of faith and having faith in the process, by believing in the importance of the ability to love everyone unconditionally. We have to have faith in that We must let go of our attachment to our demands that people act in a certain way in order for us to love them. This usually involves changing the way we see and interpret their actions. We can prefer that people act or believe as we would like, but if we demand it of them in order to be at peace with them, we will always be living at effect and not at cause in our lives. And that's like being in prison. We will always be dependent on the outer world and other people for our inner peace. And that isn't very smart. We can notice what others are doing, sure, and we might not agree, but it's a smarter reaction to just think, so that's the way Aunt Susie or my next door neighbor or my husband or boss reacts in this situation. Noted. So, and not attached to there being any other way. Just notice the reality of the situation and don't judge it according to your programming. Our reaction to the reality is our stuff, not theirs. Someone in my Wednesday night class said last week, he's not here today, I don't like the potholes in New Orleans, but they are a fact. I may try to get the situation changed, that's fine, but to continually get negative about them and hate some person who's in charge of them is not only insane, it's stupid. It is what it is. I can choose an alternate route to get to work. I can write a letter to the mayor about fixing them, or I can prefer that they be repaired. But to get negative about a pothole and let it ruin my day or let the person in charge cause me stress is setting myself up for suffering. We might not choose to spend time with certain people, that's fine, but it doesn't mean that we can't love them. Maybe we can only love the sweet little baby that they were before life got a hold of them, but we can still love that divinity in them. So, faith, wisdom, release, and love. 4 of Fillmore's 12 powers that we can develop in order to facilitate giving birth to our Christ consciousness this Christmas. We need to develop faith in the process and faith in ourselves. We certainly need to develop our wisdom so that we can discriminate what is truly important in life. We often have to release things we deem as impure in our lives or blocks to our growth or wisdom. And we certainly want to develop the capacity to love unconditionally. We'll talk more about these 12 powers in the month, but for the next few weeks, consider working on developing your faith in the spiritual process, your wisdom to discriminate what's really important, releasing the blocks to your growth, and opening your heart to love through understanding. Focusing on these 4 powers will go a long way in helping you give birth to your innate Christ consciousness and the life that you deserve to live.